Hello, my name is Eric Tinson. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, and you're listening to Rulers and Riders, a podcast where we talk to creative people about what they do and sometimes about what they ride. I met Laura Harris a few years ago here in Indy. My old friend and bandmate Alec Budd was visiting and had his new girlfriend along for the trip. Over dinner and beers, the talk turned to music and we hit it off. Laura mentioned that she was playing drums with a band called X-Hex. The next day I checked out their first album, Rips, and was blown away. Three ladies with a sound rooted in early 80s hard rock, not identifiable as strictly punk, pop, or metal, but taking the catchiest riffs, melodies, and harmonies from all. The band is driven by the songwriting of Mary Timony, with Betsy Wright on bass, and Laura holding down the backbeat. X-Hex released their new album, It's Real, on March 22nd. They're heading out on the U.S. leg of their tour April 2nd, then over to Europe in late May. They are a great live act, and I'll make sure to include their upcoming tour dates in the show notes. Laura Harris is a genuine, interesting, and funny person, a real sweetheart. During our talk, we got into airplanes, country songwriting, and comparing European to American truck stops, among many other topics. Let's talk to Laura.
Doing like you're just gonna talk to me for like an hour? Like what's going on?
I know what a podcast is.
Awesome. You're very advanced, Laura. I love that.
Well, yeah, you know, I listen to a lot of them, a lot of different formats, and the interview like formats of podcasts are like, you know, really, it's like really comforting to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if I'm driving or running or something, it's like that's so. Yeah, so I listen to a lot of them, even people I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, I like it because so sort of my thing is like I like just talk to creative people, and for a while I'd been doing like people who like wrench and ride, but also like do something creative. And my son was like, "Dad, that's like really super niche. You should do something, a little more broad." So I'm trying to like just talk to like generally creative people, which you know if they have like a cool van or car or hot rod or motorcycle or whatever, like that's awesome too. But I really like talking to creative people and sort of like how did you get to be this way, and like what sparked your interest, and what's your process, and what are you working on now? And
totally, yeah,
the whole
thing. That stuff's fascinating to me.
Yeah,
so totally.
Yeah,
but I mean, I don't know anything about motorcycles, but everyone I've told that I was going to do your podcast is like, a motorcycle. Oh my god, it's so cool. I've only been on a motorcycle once, and I was like terrified.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, honestly, like when I'm on my motorcycle, I'm pretty like terrified, but it's like...
Oh, good.
But it's
I'm glad you said that, because it feels like the human way you would feel, being...
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Being on like a, going 60 miles an hour, just like out there, fully exposed,
Yeah.
Like, there's no room for error. There's no margin for error, I feel like. There's no seatbelt.
No. No. And what's crazy is, it's like the main motorcycle I have is one that I built myself. So I'm just like constantly, like as I'm, riding along at like 80 miles an hour, I'm like, did I tighten that bolt? Did I use Loctite?
Oh, God, that gives me chills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean... I don't think about it when I'm in my car, really.
No.
Usually, unless I'm driving on the highway or on tour, I think about it constantly, I guess. But, yeah, I mean, I'm always like, I don't like, if something's amiss, my car will just, like, stop or break down or,
right.
you know, and I'll, like, pull to the side of the road and it'll be okay. It's just, I don't feel like if something fell off, you know, I would, like, fly into the street.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I had a really good time, like moments of a really good time riding on the back. My friend has a Harley, and when I was in high school, he was like, yeah, let's go out on the Harley, and we were going to go to a concert, but we ended up just driving through the mountains in Virginia, and, you know, that felt fine, I guess, but then as soon as we got on the highway to come back into the city, I was like, you know, I'm ready to be like, pull over, you know, just like, let me off the back of this thing, you know, like holding on for dear life. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I always think about that Hunter S. Thompson quote, what is it, like, faster, faster till the thrill of speed overcomes the fear of death.
Yeah,
Yeah. So.
I mean, that happened, I guess, but, you know, I've never been like a real, like, roller coaster fanatic, or like a, you know, like, I'm always, when we would sneak out of the house when we were kids and stuff, my brother and I would be like so relieved when we would get home. You know what I mean? I just never even enjoyed the part where we were like walking through the woods and stuff. I was just like, I wish I was in my bed. I wish I was in my bed. So,
yeah,
you know.
Oh, man. Yeah.
There's been like times though. There's been times when, you know, something really crazy is going on in my life or something, and then I'll get this like, I'll have these like stints of wanting to do stuff like that, like wanting to ride roller coasters, or like wanting to, you know, do just not being afraid.
Mm-hmm.
But my natural state is like I don't like to drive over tall bridges, like like, you know, I'm really afraid of heights.
Right.
I don't drive faster than like 65 in my car generally.
Uh-huh.
Like, as soon as I can feel my car start to like rattle a little bit,
right?
You know, so I'm like, oh god,
yeah,
oh my god.
Yeah, I, you know, when I was a kid, like my grandpa and my dad would just like kind of push me out there. You know, like I had go-karts and mini bikes and stuff. You know, of course, no helmet and just completely unsupervised. So, you know, I kind of grew up with it, and, you know, snowmobiles and whatever. But, you know, now as an adult, it's just like, you know, I have kids, and I'm like, what if I get messed up and I, like, you know, can't walk or something? Like, it's a morbid thought, but yeah, it's always in the back of my head.
When I was a kid, we went to, my dad had a wicker business.
Oh, yeah?
For like a fledgling wicker business. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even know that was why we were going to Florida until I was like 30. But
yeah, we
would go to this. They had this go-kart track in like Sarasota or something, and so we would all go, and my brother was super into it. I was in this go-kart, and I was behind my dad, or behind my little brother, and my little brother was going really slow up this hill, like this little hill, and so my go-kart started to go backwards because it was going so slow, and I just had I didn't know there was like a brake or anything, so I just tried to get out, and my leg got like pinned between the go-kart and the guardrail.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and I was just like, this is it, you know, this is it, it's all over, I'm gonna lose my leg, I'm like I'm dead, and I just feel like screaming, and it turned out to be like a pretty superficial, like, puncture wound at the end of the day, but,
right.
You know, I was like super traumatized by that. So,
right.
Yeah, my neighbors everyone around where I grew up had ATVs and like mopeds and motorbikes, because it was kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and my parents were like, no, you guys can't, like, ride them, you guys can't, you know, we're not getting one. And then my dad got a mongoose moped at a yard sale.
Oh,
and
awesome.
as soon really, really janky, but, it was like, oh, freedom.
Right.
And as soon as, like, one of our friends got on it, he broke his arm, like, immediately. So we just left it, left it alone.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah.
So, where did you actually grow up?
So I grew up in, I guess this is like a point of contention, but it's in Virginia, and some people say it's Northern Virginia, and some people say it's not. But it's right next to Manassas. It's a town called. It's like on the outskirts of this like Civil War era town called Clifton, and it's like right by the Occoquan River, and it was just kind of like it's about an hour or 45 minutes from DC. So so that's where I was like born in the suburbs, and then we moved way out to like the suburbs. So
gotcha.
So that was it. We were like on 5 acres, and then all of our neighbors were on like 3, 5, whatever acres.
Right.
So so it was like 1 or 2 kids, like within walking distance of my house, but it took a long time to walk.
Right.
Yeah. So we were our backyard backed right up to the Appalachian Trail.
What?
And
really?
So you would go like into the woods behind our house and be on the Appalachian Trail, and there'd be like, different colored trail markers and stuff, and so there was always like weirdos walking behind our house and stuff, but it was really cool. It was really pretty, and there was like tons of stuff to do outside, and so, but
nice.
It was cool. And it was close enough to DC that, we would go in a couple times a year for special occasions. And then as soon as I was like 15, I was there a whole lot more,
Right.
My friends and I would go for shows and stuff like that. So.
Did you ever, sorry, I totally lost what you said. What did your family do? You said your dad had a wicker business?
Oh, well, that was one of his, like, entrepreneurial ideas. He I don't know if I really even, I know now what he does, but my whole life growing up, I wasn't really sure what he did. What he does is, his dad, started a housing development business.
Sure.
And so at first my granddad was building stuff around the DC area, Fairfax, and Pentagon. Like he had a place called Pentagon Center that's now Pentagon City Mall, and it was like a bowling alley and pizza restaurant and travel agency, and he just like all of his kids worked there. My dad has 7 siblings, so and then he started building houses in the suburbs and like developments in the suburbs. And when my dad was in his like mid to late 20s, he started working for my granddad. And so my granddad passed away when I was like 3, and he just took over that business. So he builds. My dad mostly develops neighborhoods in Ocean City, Maryland, which is like the vacation spot on the Eastern Shore,
Right.
And I guess I don't even know if it's technically the Eastern Shore, but
yeah.
I don't know if the Eastern Shore is the part of Maryland that's like on the Chesapeake side, or if it's the part on the ocean side. It's on the east coast of Maryland and Delaware.
I guess.
Yeah, so he actually would fly. He has a Cessna, and he's always had a Cessna, and he would fly to and from the beach like a couple times a week. So,
wow.
Yeah, I don't know. It was really bizarre. My granddad was a pilot, and I guess an Air Force pilot, and he continued to fly recreationally after he was out of the military, and he and my dad would buy up these planes out of the classified sections of the newspaper, and they would refurbish them and sell them.
Oh, wow.
So they would buy like Cessnas and Bonanzas and stuff like that, and sell them to whoever. And my dad definitely has some stories about selling some airplanes to some like questionable people, you know. But I mean, it was the 70s, so I don't know if there just wasn't as much. The way he describes it is like it was like selling a used car, you know. Right. Except you, yeah. So he just has one. He's always had one, and we would fly in it when I was a kid. We went to my granddad's funeral in it, and my granddad died in a I believe it was a Cessna.
Oh my God!
Yeah. He was flying from Alaska back to like DC, and yeah, I think there was just really bad visibility, and it was just like a terrible accident. So really sudden and really crazy, and we flew to his funeral in my dad's Cessna.
Dang.
And I mean, I barely remember it. I just remember like fighting with my brother in the back over crayons or something.
you're in this like 4-seater airplane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, we didn't even think about it. You know, it was like, which is so funny now because I have to like, you know, talk myself down when I get on a plane now.
Oh,
I'm
really?
Like, yeah, and it's terrible. I do not like. I mean, I guess there's aspects of flying that I like, but when I start to think about it, it's like being in an airplane, being that far up. It's just I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
You know, it's overwhelming to me now. But back then, I was like, oh yeah, it's like nothing.
Right.
You know, I co-piloted once when I was like 9, and he stalled it out while I was co-piloting, and the plane it dropped like hundreds of feet. You know.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was like it was a super crazy feeling. It was like you know, like a roller coaster.
Right.
You know, times 100. But it was just it was so much fun, and I was like, do a loop, go upside down. And, you know.
Oh my
now
God.
my dad's like, your mother and I are going to fly to New York for Thanksgiving, and you should meet us at the house at like 7 a.m. And I'm like, there's no way I'm getting in that plane, you know? There's not enough Xanax in the world to get me in that plane.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's funny, I was reading about, what are they called? Skyhawks? Cessna Skyhawk? Is that like the little 4-seater?
Oh,
yeah, I was every so often I'll get these like, you know, real like, you know, compulsions to like learn about stuff. I'm like, I wonder about, you know, how much would it cost to buy like just, you know, a 4-seater airplane? And so, you know, I looked them up, and I've flown in a couple, you know, when I was a little kid. I thought they were cool. And I didn't realize they had such small motors. Like they're like just a tiny little 4-cylinder motor or something. And
yeah, it just really makes you feel super safe.
Yeah, yeah. But
it's like a lawnmower motor.
Yeah, pretty. It's basically like a moped with wings. Yeah. It's it's totally insane. And like they were just like some article I read was like they're like really super pricey now because, you know, they've crashed and like, you know, they've had to update the avionics and all this stuff. And
yeah, I should hope so.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
You know. Yeah, I think when I started getting into music or older music, like in high school and stuff, and reading about everyone that had died and, you know, that kind of airplane.
Right.
You know, it was just like, no thanks.
No.
No thanks.
Pass.
But I mean, you know, there is that aspect of like your dad, or you know, just nothing can go wrong. And
Sure.
he's flown like almost every day for the last 40 some years. And so,
Right.
when I talk to him about like air travel, his knowledge of it is a lot deeper than you would think. Like, I don't know, we watched that movie Sully, and I was like, Dad, what did you think of that movie? And he was like, totally unbelievable. I don't know. He just went into a lot of specifics about it, and
Right.
he was like, we have, I guess they have like dogs or something at the airports that scare the birds away
Sure.
from your plane.
Right.
Because, he's not allowed to take off if there's, I guess he was like, it's such bullshit, like, there's these, like, birds that are protected, like, by law, and they were made a nest in my engine,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had to wait until they left on their own to fly, and he was just so put out, He had to sit. It was funny to me to think about him sitting there and like waiting for this bird family to, leave so he could fly to work or whatever. But it is, it is a lot more technical than obviously the way I thought of it when I was a kid, which is like, oh, Dad can just go, he can just go to the municipal airport and take off,
Right.
And it's a lot different now, I'm sure, than it was in the 80s anyway. So,
Right.
so that's reassuring. And they have to, I think, don't quote me on this, but they have to, like, go through the training process periodically. And
Sure.
there's, they have to learn all kinds of stuff. They have to do their simulators now are crazy. So they have to do simulated water landings and simulated, like, no engine landings and all this stuff. So
Jeez.
it is one of those things where you're like, it seems so, like, it's like riding a motorcycle. Like
Right.
100 million things could go wrong, but
Yeah.
the chances are actually pretty slim,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I usually fly at least once a month to go see my girlfriend. And I got on this kick of like watching these videos of like touch and go landings and like tail strikes and like all
Right.
these like high wind shear landings and stuff.
yeah.
And and it's like when like a Airbus 320 is coming down or something, and it's like landing in a high wind. It's like it just looks like a hot dog, like somebody like shaking a hot dog, because it's like all this like wind shear, and they're twisting and everything. And I'm like, man, I need to quit watching these because these are they're frightening. They're absolutely frightening.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that if I didn't have to fly, I probably never would.
No.
If I didn't have to.
No.
It's like everyone's always like, oh, I don't mind flying except the airport, and I really don't mind the airport at all because I'm
Right.
always like, oh, I made it.
Right.
Thank God.
Yeah. They say it's safer than cars, but man, I don't know. They're a lot scarier than cars, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things again where it's like no margin. There's like, I guess there is margin for error, but like once things go, super wrong, you're just not going to survive. Not to be a Debbie Downer.
No.
Although I have read those like miraculous, like I survived this stories of people who were like ejected from a plane and then lived for like 15 days in the like Peruvian jungle.
Right. Yeah. Well, one thing that always is like super crazy to me is when like Otis Redding, like the plane crash he died in.
Yeah.
So I can't remember the guy's name, but the drummer of the Barkays, like he lived, and
he lived.
Yeah, and I think he's still alive.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, he was like the only guy that survived the plane crash.
Can you imagine?
That's
Can you
crazy.
imagine surviving a plane crash?
Yeah, and then so I'm obviously I think he was pretty messed up for a while, but
Yeah.
Then like Otis Redding, like his big hit, his biggest hit was sitting on the dock of the bay. So it's like
Right.
I'm just imagining that dude is like all of his friends and bandmates are dead, and that song is just like on the radio like all the time. Like it was like a huge posthumous hit for him. Like that's just so
brutal.
Crazy. Yeah, really
Super brutal.
Yeah. So you said you started listening to older music when you were in high school. How did you get into music?
Well, my parents were real into music. My mom is, I don't know. My dad plays guitar, and my mom is classically trained pianist.
Uh-huh.
And, to my later chagrin, she was like, I never wanted to get you piano lessons because I hated them so much. But she plays so beautifully, and I'm like, man, I wish she would have just made me do that, instead of making me do, like, chores.
Right.
But he always listened to a lot of music. My dad was, like, in a Neil Young cover band, and my mom can sight read, and so they both sing, and they were real into, like, Neil Young, Linda Ronstadt, the Beatles. I think my mom loves the Moody Blues, but there was a lot of that. My dad won't admit it now, but he loves Madonna. So there was there's just lots of stuff, lots of music going on. And then I think when they never cared what we listened to, and my older brother and I we were allowed to buy whatever CDs we wanted, and so we would, my brother, I remember when he bought when the Chronic came out, and that was a really big deal.
Right.
And we were allowed to play it in the car.
Oh, wow.
And so my mom just had such a super good attitude about, she's a teacher, she was a middle school science teacher, and she had such a good attitude about kids, and, she would never be like, this is like terrible, and she would say jokingly, she'd be like, what did he say? But we'd be like singing along. So, and they had record player, they had tons of records, CD player, Queen and stuff like that. But my older brother got really into, I guess, Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin, and I remember he was really into the band and Bob Dylan and stuff when I was probably 13, and we're really close in age. We're 16 months apart, so I would just sleep on his floor, and we would listen to music. And that's when I remember really being it was an identity when in middle school, 12, 13.
Right.
And that's when it got really I would wait for certain songs to come on the radio, and I would tape them. I'd tape New Order, and really into New Order and The Cure and all that stuff. Then I just started kind of hanging out with a different crowd, and a crowd that was really safe to my mom, but also these kids that I thought were super funny and really smart, and we would just I was allowed to hang out with them because we would just do goofy stuff, and nobody ever, there was no drugs, no alcohol, nobody ever got in trouble. Everyone was real respectful, and so I ended up hanging out with them, and they were going to a lot of shows and listening to a lot of punk music and stuff like that. And so that's when I started getting into that kind of stuff. And, that's kind of how that happened. And then it was I was really consumed with doing that,
Right. Did you, when did you, start playing drums?
I started playing drums when I was like 16. I had a friend that left his drums, like, since my parents lived out so far. My mom was like, well, just tell your friends they can play in our basement because there's nobody around. So, you know, after school, like 6 or 7 of us would go back to my parents' house, and, you know, they would practice. Their band would practice, and I would, like, do whatever, do my homework, you know, rollerblade or whatever. And then they left their gear there. And so I would just go down there when they weren't there and play the drums. And I guess guitar it wasn't like an immediate connection with guitar. You know, it didn't make a ton of sense to me the way drums did. And, drums are just super physical. So it felt really natural. And drums are like one of those things I feel like you can pick up really easily, like the real basics.
Right.
And so when I teach kids, and when I teach kids how to play drums, I just teach them a really simple beat and then apply it to, like, every song that they love, and that they feel like they can play music, you know what I mean? And so it was really, like, immediate gratification. And then, and then I just kept it up.
Just kept plugging away.
Kind of followed that. What's that?
Just kept plugging away.
Yeah, I just kept plugging away. I, like, started to make it more my trajectory or whatever. You know, I got a job at a music store, and was, like, going to shows, like, 3 or 4 times a week and seeing all these, being really close to people that were playing drums, you know, standing next to them or whatever. And I was, like, studying what they were doing, and, you know.
Right.
So.
When did, when did you play in your first band?
So I was playing, like, in some joke bands and stuff in D.C., and then
some joke
I went
bands?
away to California. Well, yeah, like, a couple friends of mine and I were like, we should start a band, and I was like 16 or 17, and we never really did anything. I think my parents, we had, like, house shows in my basement a few times. And we were like, yeah, we should play at this house show we're going to have. And we just didn't get it together. We you know, we had no idea how to write a song or practice or anything. So then I went away to school for, like, less than a semester, less than a year. And I came back, and I met a guy named Jason Hutto at one of his shows, and he just asked me if I played the drums, and he said, I heard you play the drums, and I just said, yeah, and then he gave me a CD of some stuff he'd been working out with this other drummer, and he was like, this is some of my stuff, you should come over and see if you can do it. And I was like, there's no way I can do this. It was like, you know, it was super, to me then I remember listening to it and being like, what the fuck is this? Like, super complicated. It sounded really jazzy to me, and, like, you know, so I was like, I can't. And then he was like, I don't care. And so I just went over there, and we just hung out and started jamming and stuff, and it just sort of started coming together, and it was a lot of fun. And then pretty shortly thereafter, we booked a show. And, and so then it was, like, off to the races, you know. I just played. We practiced, like, 3 or 4 times a week, and so I just learned playing music with him. And that band was called The Aquarium.
Cool.
So,
did you guys? How far did you take that band?
Well, we put out a record on Discord here in DC.
That's pretty good for a first record.
Yeah, right? Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
And that was just so super cool, and such a total dream come true and stuff. And we were playing a lot locally, but I was like, we didn't want to tour. I didn't want to tour. I think I didn't know how, or like that it was possible. And I was making a lot of money at my job at the Black Cat, this club called the Black Cat. And I was like bar backing and bartending, and so you know, I was just like, man, I don't hold on. Yeah, so I was like, I can't afford to like go on a month-long tour, you know,
Right.
and that like Jason, my bandmate, was like, I'm sure, like, what the, you know, what the fuck, like this girl, but yeah, we never really went. We went on one short tour and then kind of stopped playing after. We played together for about like 6 years, but then I started playing with my ex-husband. So
Gotcha.
kind of went in a different direction. Yeah, I was playing with this guy named Benji Faree, who was doing like singer-songwriter stuff.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, I was feeling like, you know, I was playing super punky, and he just had these incredible songs, and I was like, man, I want to try to play this kind of music, you know,
Right.
this more, yeah. And so I was listening to actually like a lot of Otis Redding and Sam Cooke and their drummers, and like studying what their drummers were doing and trying to do it without having any idea what technically they were doing, you know?
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, and that stuff is like, it's like ridiculously easy but complex at the same time.
Oh, yeah. For sure. It's like the groove and the backbeat and holding a groove and knowing when to amp up and mellow out at the right times. And it's a lot of, you know, it's like, it sounds, there's a Sam Cooke live at the Harlem Club or something like that. And his drummer sounds so super aggressive and fired up and everything. And, but it is really nuanced, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, and it's the thing is that in the aquarium it was just drums and like keyboard and Wurlitzer, like a Wurlitzer piano.
Mm-hmm.
And so the drums are like right up there as like a main instrument. And so learning how to play like for someone else and kind of behind someone else and complementary to someone else like that was a really, really hard lesson to learn, you know?
Right.
Because it's like not all about you, and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I started. My first instrument in middle school band was a sousaphone. So like the big, like, you know, brass, like, you know, with the big horn and stuff.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. It was okay. I mean, you know, I was like in middle school and I was like self-conscious kid, so I was like, wasn't like. I mean, it was okay. I liked being in band, but it wasn't like a cool instrument to play, you know? When you're like 13, 14, it's like, you know, you want to play like the cool instrument. But
yeah.
I had like,
how did you end up playing that?
It's so I had like like in 6th grade, they had like these like a sign up sheet for like percussion, like if you were like wanted to be in like the drum line for like, you know, middle school band, you had to like take this like percussion test. And so I took this test and I got like 100%, like a really high score on it, which was like apparently really hard to do. And so the guy who like gave me the test, he's like, yeah, you'll play drums next year in middle school band. So I get there to middle school band the next year thinking like, oh, you know, like I'm a shoo-in, like the dude that gave me the tryout really liked me. And so there were like, I think it was like 20 kids in our like school system, and there were like 8 places.
Oh man.
And so we had to like take all these tests and learn all these like rudiment charts and everything. And
my God. Wait, did you play drums or percussion before that?
No. I was like, went in like totally like 7th grade, like, I just, you know, had played, like my uncle had a snare drum and I would like mess around on that, but I had, I knew nothing at all. Like I didn't know what a rudiment was until I got to like 7th grade band. And so, you know, but I liked it and I was, you know, kind of like naturally talented with it. So, we're like going like 6 weeks, and I'm, doing pretty good. And there was like this written test, and I got like, I think the cutoff was like, maybe like the cutoff was like 85 or something on this test. And I got an 88. So I got like, I passed, but I'd, done well on everything else. I think I just got nervous or whatever. But like,
is it 88 out of 100?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this kid, like, my dad was like a total like cheap ass, and he's like, well, I'm not going to buy you a drum. Like, you had to buy like a snare and a practice pad and stand and everything.
What?
He's like, I'm not going to buy you a drum until you like are, make the cut, until you like get, into the drum line for sure. So,
oh man.
So there was this kid, I remember his name was Scott, and he was like, he got an 85 on the test, but his dad had like bought him his drum already.
No.
So they're like, well, we'll just, sorry.
Fucking Scott.
Yeah, fucking Scott. So I was
that is like the...
Yeah, it was total like heartbreak. So they were like...
you got a better score on this percussion test, like straight out of the gate, never played before,
right?
88, and because you didn't have like your own stuff, they went with Scott.
Yep, Scott. Every time I'd see that kid, I'd get a little mad. I was just like,
hell yeah.
If my dad just would have bought me a drum. Yeah. So they were like, you could play the French horn or the sousaphone, and I was
that's
like,
not even remotely close to percussion.
No, they were like, those are your two choices, and so I was like,
that's so backwards.
Yeah, it was a bummer.
I never joined high school band because, I just was like, anything that keeps me at school longer than I like have to be there is bad.
Right, totally.
But yeah, now I wish I would have. Do you remember what kind of questions were on that drum test?
I think it was just like you had to just play like different, rudiments and like that what is it, like the one like a rudiment chart, it's got like 20 different like
Yeah.
For people who don't play drums that are listening to this, it's like different drum beats. So whenever you're listening to like a song and you hear like a drummer play a fill, he's actually probably playing like one of those like 20 rudiments. And if you take percussion lessons, those are like drilled into your head, and you should be able to like play them on command, and like they have.
They're no joke either. I still can't remember all my rudiments, and I practice. At this point, I'm practicing like every day, and so it was one of those things. Like when I started working in this music store, everybody in there was like, fucking had their practice pad out on the counter and was like, and they were like, "This is a like paradiddle diddle," and
flamadiddle,
flamadiddle. And when you play it real fast, it sounds like this, and and their forearms were like bulging, and like veins were popping out, and they were just fucking playing these like Radamacute flamadiddle or whatever. And I was like, man, I really should learn all these rudiments. Like, I'm just standing here all day.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's when I started getting into punk, so I was reading, instead somebody had left, like, a copy of Band in D.C. in the drum room, a friend of mine. And so I was just, like, looking at those pictures and drawing those, drawing those people and, like, making flyers and stuff like that. And so I do know, like, most of my rudiments, but yeah, still, there's, like, if you were like, play them all, I'd be like,
and that, well, later on, I ended up, like, when I was, like, older, I bought my own drum set and, like, paid for my own drum lessons and learned kind of how to play.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So.
Yeah, drum lessons are super fun. I thought it was a real, cool thing to be self-taught for forever. And I was like, I'm self-taught. Right. And then it just got to a point where I was like, I can't do it, And, stuff started being super hard. And and it was harder to communicate with other musicians, like non-drummers,
right,
without knowing about stuff as simple as like a bar, or I don't know, like time signature or whatever, measures or stuff like that. And so, so I started taking drum lessons. I did take drum lessons when I was like 19 from a real good friend of mine, the same guy that had that motorcycle named Jason Hamaker, and he taught me like some drum lessons a couple times, and then when I got older, I finally started taking actual drum lessons, and take drum lessons, all of you listeners.
If you want to play, if you want to be able to do like more than just play like in a punk band or something, for sure.
Yeah, if you want to be able, even if you want to just play in a punk band, drum lessons are super cool. Learning how to relax and meditate to that kind of stuff, and just like muscle memory and letting your body do that stuff is super cool. So anyway, yeah. So you ended up playing the sousaphone?
I ended up playing the sousaphone for 2 years, and then I quit band after that because I hated it so much. Yeah.
Was it lame? Was band lame?
I don't.
What's high school band culture?
Oh, what's high school band culture? At the time, it was like, I think like, so, let me think here. So that would have been like 1984, because I'm a little bit older than you. And
a little bit.
So I think I was like really into like The Clash and like Adamant and
oh yeah, Strip.
Yeah, maybe like Dead Kennedys or something at that point. But everybody was like really into like Rush and like Dio era Black Sabbath, and like I mean I like that stuff fine now, but like at the time, like I wanted to do something like cool, and band just didn't have that like cool factor for me. So,
totally.
Yeah. So
did you guys like? Was it all about technicalities or technique or?
Oh yeah. Like there was like.
It's so,
like
go ahead.
You'd have to like learn to march and go to band camp and like go to contests and play at all the basketball games and football games and
How are the uniforms?
They're like those toy soldier uniforms with like the big hats and the braids and all that stuff, and
holy shit.
Yeah.
Braids in your hair?
No, like gold braids with like
oh yeah, like tassels. Okay.
Yeah.
Kids still love Rush.
Do they?
Music lessons. Kids still love Rush. I judged a School of Rock music competition. I guess it was like a placement kind of thing. And so everyone kind of had to come in, and we had to play. Me and two other teachers were playing these songs. They got to pick from like 5 songs, and then they would do a solo piece. And like 9 out of 10 played prog or played like Rush.
What?
Yeah, and I was like, dude, man, like, what's up with that? I mean, I like Rush, I guess, but I don't know if it's like a thing when you're learning an instrument where you're like, I'm just gonna go straight to the fucking top and like, do like the hardest thing I possibly can, or I'm not gonna bother with stuff that I'm not gonna waste my time with stuff that I can already, but I'm just gonna like be really like Rush.
Right. Yeah. When it's funny because like I don't know, maybe that's just like part of the way my brain works, but I felt like I needed to learn the like really simple stuff first, and then then I would have like a basic competency, and then I could just like build on that. And
that's the right way, I think.
Yeah. So, like when I started like learning how to play guitar, I would learn how to play Bo Diddley songs because they were just like super easy and very few chord changes and mostly like rhythm and
but so good.
Yeah, and so fantastic, and they still sound fresh and otherworldly.
That's so crazy about like Bo Diddley or Howlin' Wolf or whatever. If you play that stuff on guitar, it's still like, oh my God.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, and it's so emotive and just like really like, I love it. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. Did you play in a band?
Did I play in a band?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I had a couple bands, and I was in like an early version of the Problematics with Alec and Jeff.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then I had like my own record. I put out a record under my own name.
You did?
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
It's just called Eric Kinsey?
Eric Kinsey and his Tip Top Daddies.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You play guitar?
Played guitar and sang, wrote songs.
And you were like an Indianapolis punk music, indie music.
Yeah, that's kind of how I started, but then I like drifted more towards like roots oriented, like country music, especially.
Yeah.
That's kind of my main thing now. Is just like singer songwriter country music.
All country or like modern or older, all of it?
Yeah, more like older, sort of like a cross between like stuff I work on now is like sort of a cross between like country rock and bluegrass and like honky tonk. So
how easy do you think it is to write like country music lyrics?
I think if you're like want to write like country music lyrics, it's okay. I have this thing, and I've actually seen this like in a book somewhere. I can't remember what book it was, but it basically like somebody did a comparison between Merle Haggard and Bob Dylan, and the point they made about like Merle Haggard is one that I always kind of think of is like Merle Haggard could do in like 2 verses and a chorus emotionally what Bob Dylan would take, a whole album to say.
No way. Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't disagree, but I've never heard it put that way.
Yeah, that's to me like that's like the real secret of like writing a good country song is that like emotional economy of phrase and just like
it's mainlining it. Like there's actually this. I mean, my mom's family is from New Mexico, so they all love country music. And there was a guy that grew up with my mom. I guess he's a little older, called Gene Booth.
Okay.
And we just got the record in the mail. My mom and dad have had it forever. And this guy was like a super mainstay in their town in Deming. He was like a nut.
Mm-hmm.
But he wrote this. He wrote this record and called, what is it called? It's called like the something Gene Booth, like the unmistakable Gene Booth or something like that. And it's so far out and great. It was on a pretty big label for a while, but so it is. I guess my point is when you talk about like lyrically that record is bananas, but like when I was a little kid, we would listen to Hank Williams and stuff in New Mexico, and that always seemed like the top, lyrically and musically, like
the best, like undeniably. Hank Williams is like one of those people that like. So I have that like complete Hank Williams box set, and then like of course it's all like available on Spotify and like the health and happiness shows and all that. And
right.
So and I like years ago, like went like in a deep dive and like, you know, read like the Colin Escott book and like another book,
yeah.
you know, like all that stuff about like Hank Williams. And like I've been to what was it, like Georgiana, Alabama. I've been to his hometown. I've been to the house where he grew up and everything.
Oh,
and, like just like super, you know, in depth. And you know, like the unfortunate thing is like an artist like Hank Williams is that he's been dead for so long, and he did put out a lot of stuff, but like it's finite. So it's like you listen to it all, you take it in, and then it, you know, like you put it on a shelf and like, you know, move on to something else. And then like last year, I don't know why, but like I just started like digging back into it, and just really, and maybe it's like being at a different age or being more mature, like having more life experience.
right.
But it just like had like a whole different resonance to me, you know, like
Totally, absolutely. Like every time something, you know, I feel like every time I do pull that stuff out, exactly like you're saying, and re-listen to it, like my role in the song changes. I don't know if that sounds super narcissistic,
yeah,
but like, you know, like specifically, like you're gonna change, or you know, like
yeah.
that song when I first heard it, and I was like a little kid, I thought it was like goofy and funny because of the yodeling and because, you know, he said words like junk and stuff and peeved. And then when I was in my 20s, it was like, I was like, yeah, you're going to change, or I'm going to leave. You know, like, yeah, I have had relationships like that.
Right.
And then in my, like, 30s, it's like, oh, I can, you know, I can, like, see his point, you know?
Yeah.
It is totally, like, it's what makes it, like, a real timeless, succinct sentiment, you know?
Yeah.
About a subject like fucking relationships or love, or especially, I always thought Hank Williams, I always had a thing about, I just thought he was really a sympathetic character because of his back pain, you know?
Right.
And I don't have back pain, but when I was first touring, I had, like, terrible stomach issues.
Oh, no.
And, so I didn't know, you know, I was like, always in pain. And I think when I started touring, like, in my 20s, a lot more, I started drinking a lot more on tour.
Mm-hmm.
To, like, you know, to not have to deal with anxiety around stomach pain, around anxiety. Like, it was all a vicious cycle. Right. And then, you know, it was one of those things where I'm like, Hank Williams gets it, you know?
Yeah. Well,
but, yeah, so, I don't know, I felt, and he just had this super mystique about, you know, about him.
Yeah. One thing I was, like, really fascinated by with Hank Williams is that he could, you know, he wrote, like, all those songs about Audrey, and he could,
right.
he could capture so many emotions in, like, different songs, but it was all about, like, the same woman and the same relationship, and it was, like, so multifaceted. And so,
totally.
like, you listen to, like, you know, a song like I'm Satisfied with You, like, that's, like, super ecstatic and, like, real swinging, you know, cool song.
Yeah.
And then you listen to What Do You Want Me to Do, and it's, like, super slow and morose, and he's just, like, very resigned. And, but it's, like, none of those songs, I've got a bunch of Hank Williams 78s down in the basement, and they're all, like, almost every Hank Williams song is between, like, 2 minutes and 8 seconds and 2 minutes and, like, 15 seconds. They're all, like, very concise and almost like...
Are they demos or are they...
No, they're just... That's just his songs. Like, if you go and, like, listen to, like, just look at, like, a CD or something with, like, how long the songs are.
Yeah.
And it's crazy just what a great writer he was. Like,
I know.
like a craftsman.
I know. I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame last year. I was on tour with a band called Death Valley Girls.
Yeah.
From LA, and we stopped at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he had his notebooks. They had his notebooks.
Oh, yeah.
And his jackets and his guitar, and it was like seeing his notebooks was crazy. But yeah, so prolific, and like he died. How old was he when he died? 20.
Not even 30.
Yeah, like 20, 27, 28.
Yeah, I think 28 or something. But yeah. So, funny thing, so Marty Stewart, who's, like a amazing country musician.
Oh, yeah.
He is like the biggest, I think he's like the world's biggest Hank Williams collector. And
really?
Yeah, and he's opening like a whole new like museum of like his...
No way!
Yeah, in Mississippi, and it's supposed to open, I think, maybe next year or something. But he...
Oh, my God.
I read some story about Marty Stewart where he was talking about how he had become friends with Hank Williams' sister, and so she had like a ton of his stuff, and I guess every time she would like need some money, she would just like call up Marty Stewart as like, oh, I found a royalty receipt for my bucket's got a hole in it or whatever. And,
no way.
And he'd be like, okay, I'll buy it. And how much do you want it? $50 or whatever. So he would send her like $50 and she would like mail him the receipt. And they did that for years. And so he just has like notebooks and clothes and just like receipts and just all kinds of stuff.
Bless Marty Stewart. I feel like that guy really gets around as far as like American or country, whatever you want to call it, music history.
Oh, he's an angel. Did you guys?
Hasn't he performed like with the remaining members of the Carter family and stuff like that?
I think he does that too. I know he recorded like a record at like near my hometown at the Gaither Gaither family studio, like a gospel record. I saw him. When was that? I guess it was like last fall. I saw him on the tour with the Birds. And
yeah, dude, I didn't get to go to that show.
Oh, it was so awesome. It was such.
My God!
It was so fantastic. So
yeah.
So to totally change the subject, how did you get into XX and what led up to that?
Well, it was kind of like the DC music scene in like the early 2000s was, I thought it was pretty small, like, and I had started working at the Black Cat, and Aquarium was playing a lot all around, and I met Mary, and I seen Mary play in like the Mary Timony band. She had a solo, and she kind of always was playing with different people. I would see her kind of standing in, because everybody wants Mary to play guitar. Everybody's like, Mary, she's such a incredible player. And so anyway, I would see her, and she would come to see the Aquarium, and she said she was a fan. She came up to me after a couple of shows and was like, I just love that. I'm such a fan. And I was like, I can't believe it, I can't believe she. And then when I was playing with my ex-husband, we had a mutual friend playing bass, and she actually sat in on a show with us, and so we kind of got into a closer circle, and then she was in Wild Flag, and the Aquarium opened for Wild Flag, and then I kind of didn't. Nothing was really happening, and I was like at home, and Benji and I weren't playing really, and I was just kind of like sitting around learning songs on my electronic drum set, like whatever,
Yeah.
And she called and was like, I have some stuff I've been working on. Would you want to like get together and play? Right. And I was like, I didn't really understand. I was like, yeah, sure, you know, I'm always down to jam with a buddy, you know?
Sure.
And so we got together at this, like, pretty crazy practice space in D.C., One World. It was, like, owned by this, like, Rastafarian or whatever.
Yes.
And we played for, like, a good 3 or 4 hours, and she had these super cool, like, really kind of skeletal ideas. And we just, like, sort of collaborated on them, and then we hung out for, like, an hour or so afterwards and talked and caught up and stuff, and then she was like, do you want to do this again? We should do this again.
Right.
Yeah, I want to do it again. And it took me a minute to figure out that we were going to try to be a band, you know? I was like, I'm just helping Mary figure out her song. And then once it was like, hey, I want to do a record. We got to do a record, and we got to get a bass player and figure out what we want to do. And so then we found Betsy. She had been, I had known her too peripherally. She had been dating this guy Stuart Lupton, like many years ago. And they had a band called Child Ballad. And so Benji and I were friends with Stuart, and so I met her, and then she disappeared for like 5 years or something. And then Mary was like, well, what about Betsy Wright? I think she's back in D.C. And I was like, oh, yeah, her. And I had no idea Betsy was, like, the musician that she is, you know? And she came in, and she had never played bass before, and she came in and she, like, killed it on bass.
Yeah.
So she's, you know, she's a really great piano player and a, you know, really great singer, and she has like a somewhat of an academic musical background, so she was like on it. And then we played, and it was just so obvious that was going to be a good fit, you know. And she ended up having a lot of ideas and just being a really great collaborator, and so that's how we started. And then it kind of just like took off, and I don't know that anybody expected that. So we were like, we just need a manager, you know, we're fine, we can do this. And then we were like scrambling. We were like, oh God. Mary was doing interviews, we were doing interviews, you know, we were like booking everything. Well, we weren't booking everything, we have a booking agent, but we were booking like hotel rooms and rental cars and, you know, doing all the driving and doing all the settling, and it was really, really fun and bananas for a couple of years. And, you know, we went to Europe, we went to Greece, we ended up in Greece at the end of this, like, insane February, like, 5-week European tour, and flying into Athens is still, like, the most amazing visual, like, sensory memory I have, you know? And so that was it. That's kind of how it happened. And Merge had worked with Wild Flag, so Mary knew the guys at Merge, and we played a show with Mac, one of the guys that owns Merge, him and this person, Laura Balance. And we played a show with him, and he was like, I like the stuff, and I'm going to put out, like, some records, and we were, like, fantastic. And so, yeah, it kind of happened like that. And we like built it as we went, basically. Yeah. And then we took like a little break. I guess like a year or 2 years, long break. We were all pretty spent at the end of the record cycle for our first record. And I mean, I know that when I got home, like for good, without any more upcoming, like super upcoming stuff, I had a lot of shit that was out of order, you know?
Yeah.
Like I had, like my medical insurance was all crazy, my car insurance was crazy, you know?
Yeah.
I had to catch up on so much stuff, like, and so, yeah, we took that break, and then things kind of settled down a little bit for a couple of years, and then we picked it back up after that. Like I guess, like 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, we started working again.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you got a new record coming out?
Yeah, we have a new record coming out. It's called It's Real.
Yeah.
And it's coming out on Merge. So that's coming out March 23rd, I believe.
Sweet. That's 5 days it's 5 days after my birthday.
No way.
Yeah.
I'll have to send you one as a birthday present.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to get your address.
Yeah.
On the air.
We'll do that after we turn the recording off. Yeah, the singles sound really good.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was like playing them for my girlfriend when I was in Texas, and I was like, yeah, it's my friend Laura. I'm going to interview her on Sunday.
Hell yeah! What did she say?
She dug it.
Huh.
Yeah, she's
awesome.
Yeah, she's cool. She's like an old time punk rocker too. So she's
the best. Best kind.
How did you get the association with Death Valley Girls?
So when XX was taking a break, let's see. Alec and I were driving like to Pennsylvania, and I got a call from Ian Spinonius, and he was like, "Hey, so are you doing anything like over the summer?" And I was like, "Not really. Why?" And he was like, "Well, my friends, this band, the Death Valley Girls, need a drummer for this European tour." And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." Because with drumming, I feel like you just lose your chops so quickly if you don't and especially there's just no sub for playing live. There's no substitute. You can practice all day, and you just lose so much from not playing live or collaborating with people. And so I was like, yeah, sure. And I talked to Bonnie, the lead singer, on the phone in a hotel room. We were going to see the lead singer of Radio Birdman, Alec and I, in Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. So, so we were in this hotel room, and Bonnie called, and she was like, "Hey, do you really want to do this?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And so they sent me the dates, and I sent them my passport, and I flew out to LA, I guess, 3 or 4 days before the tour, and learned their song. I learned their songs at home, and then we practiced, and I got on a plane, and we were in Europe. It was fucking crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a crazy tour, but it was so much fucking fun. It was their stuff is raw, and their guitar player Larry Schemmel is just one of the greatest guitar players I've ever heard. And so it was just a lot of fun, and I played that tour with them, and then ended up playing another a U.S. tour, and then some festivals and stuff like that, and then XX was working again, started really working again, and I was kind of I don't know if I can juggle this, and we had always, the whole time I was on tour with Death Valley Girls, it was I don't know how long I can do this, and the drummer that they had before me had, I had no idea if she was going to come back and play again. So there was also that. I was like, well, I don't know if she's going to come back and play again. And also, I don't know when XX is going to really start playing again. So there was this understanding where we were like, we'll do this as long as we can,
right.
As long as it makes sense. And then we'll go from there. And so I was supposed to go on a tour with them, and I had to text Bonnie and drop out of the tour.
What a bummer.
And she was so cool about it, though. It's in music or whatever, in this business, understanding from people about things is just not perfect. Well, to not sound stupid, it's really precious. You know what I mean? And so
totally.
It's like she was like, of course it's okay. I want XX to win. I hope we can play together again, and, you know, I love you. And so, and they did, their other drummer, Laura Kelsey, came back and is playing drums with them now, and she's ruling it. So yeah, so it worked out really well, and I'm really glad I got to do it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
They're totally like it was a different style.
For sure. Yeah.
You know?
For sure. And it's so weird, like, I don't know, like my thing with music is, like, I'm still just kind of a weird, you know, obsessive compulsive person, and I love music. It's like my, you know, main passion in life.
Totally.
But sometimes I get so, like, head down about it that, like, I forget that, like, the people I'm playing with, it's like, oh yeah, they're just, like, you know, weird obsessive compulsive people too, you know, they're just
exactly
that same kind of person. And, like, you kind of have to, like, remind yourself to be a little bit forgiving of the sort of musician character, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, and
I mean, at the end of the day, if you're playing music with someone, it is a collaboration. You know what I mean? And I'm a really stubborn person, and that's been something that I've, like, had to fucking check. You know what I mean? Because you're collaborating. You're not, you know, your idea isn't always right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, so I think this last record, everyone kind of conceded their ego and like swallowed a pill, you know,
right,
to make it happen, in a really good way, because it's like a, you know, it's just another way of growing, to learn how to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not burn out or, like, kill yourself over
or
that kind of thing.
Yeah, or, like, not make something you love doing into like a just a droll, quotidian, kind of boring, going through the motions kind of job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because, I mean, straight up touring is, like, at this level is not, like, it's already difficult, you know what I mean? It's like, it's great and it's fun and everything, but you are, like, away from home and on a crazy schedule, and it is, like, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of planning and stuff like that. So,
right.
So yeah, you want to still love it.
Right.
Definitely want to still, like, love doing it. So,
yeah. I like, years ago, dated this gal, and she's the stage manager for Barry Manilow. Like, that's,
whoa.
Yeah, that's still her
that's
job.
Awesome.
Yeah, and she works for Beck too. Like, those are two main gigs.
Oh wow.
But
I love Sea Change.
Yeah, fantastic. And I remember, like, going, like, he was, like, Barry was doing like a residency in Las Vegas, and so she's like, why don't you fly out here and, like, you know, come visit for a couple days and you can see the show. And so it was like a really, like, a very vastly different experience side of music that I had never, you know, seen the backstage of, you know.
Yeah,
and
totally.
And it's like, crazy multimedia show. Like, he's, I mean, you know, he's a legend. I mean, like, you know.
Absolutely.
But after the show, like, meeting, like, the people in his band, so, like, you know, the time, my girlfriend's coworkers, they were just, like, regular people. They were just, like, me or you. They're just, like, you know, they just love music and they love playing and they love the job. And I don't know. This is something I've always tried to, like, keep in perspective. It's, you can't let, if you stop loving what you do, it's just going to become a grind and you're just going to hate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they, I'm sure, love their instrument. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a big thing that I've learned from, my friend Joe Wong, who's a great drummer, and also has a podcast called The Trap Set. Anyway, we were talking, and he was like, you have to like find that love for your instrument when you're doing stuff that is like tedious or is like not coming so easily or whatever, and like reconnect with it, because it kind of, I don't know, it like reinforces everything and just like gives like a super purpose to doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you forget about like why you started playing it, why you started playing in the first place, then it'll be fucking miserable. So
yeah, don't you think too though that like that like the tedious aspects of like practicing and like learning new songs, writing songs and stuff, it's like it gives you a chance to like, I always think of it like playing music as like being able to speak like a secret language that only like,
yeah, definitely, yeah. Oh yeah, I love practice now.
Mm-hmm.
I love it now. I didn't always, and for so long I thought that it was like a hindrance to my playing. I was like, if I'm practiced, it'll be stale or heartless or which is like not the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love it now. I like can sit in my basement for hours and play now and just be super happy the entire time.
Yeah.
And not worry about it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be like raw and unlearned and like by the seat of your pants all the time, which is how I always felt it, like it should be, like it was going to fall apart at any minute. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah. So, but it is like speaking another language for sure. And I mean, like literally too, because like I was saying before, being able to like talk to other musicians about parts of songs or ideas or like time signatures or whatever, you can't constantly be like, well, wait, what do you mean? Like when the thing does the like thing where it goes up, or like like when you do that thing with that one string or note or whatever it's called,
Yeah.
it's like maddening.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And sometimes I'll like sit there and try to play along on guitar to like YouTube videos and stuff to get a better idea of what someone else is doing. You know what I mean? Like a guitarist is doing. So I, can figure out how to play better to the song. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
If you're thinking about someone else's part.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
When are you guys going out on the road?
We're gonna go on like April 2nd is our first show in Richmond, and then we play up until early May. Like I think it's like either the last day of April or the first day of May or the first couple days of May, and then we're home for a week or a few days, and then we play a couple local shows, and then we go to Europe. So pretty soon we'll be grinding pretty soon.
Dang.
Yeah.
Do you know? I haven't looked at the European dates, but do you know where all you were going?
Yeah, we're gonna do the UK, Glasgow, some Germany. Like I think we're playing maybe one or two Switzerland dates, and I think that's basically what's on the schedule now.
Nice.
Subject to change, I think, but yeah. So that's the basic. It's a short one. It's like 2 weeks, which is good. You know, like I love touring in Europe and going to Europe. It's super cool, and you know, people are really hospitable, and I'm such a creature of habit that the first couple of times I went, I was like, I'm so homesick. I was like, I need a Coca-Cola. I'm like, you know,
right.
I can't understand what anyone's saying, and like stuff tastes weird, and then now I'm like, you know, it's great. I get it. It's great, you know, and no longer freaked out about it. Like I used to make. I don't know if this is like medically true, but I think I used to make myself sick before European tours. Like,
oh yeah,
the first one that XX went on, I had like some stomach virus, and like when Death Valley Girls went, I had like food poisoning. You know, like the first week.
Right. Well,
so, yeah, I mean, but I love it now. It's great now. It's easy now, and you know, like. People in Europe, for the most part, are super helpful and really great. And it doesn't, you know, you're not going to get, like, stranded or whatever.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine.
What's the crowd reception like for XX over there?
It kind of depends on where we are. The UK is always pretty good. You know, the UK is just like the UK has such a cool relationship to America musically. I feel like that's kind of like the status quo.
Right.
So I mean, the UK like knows how to rock for sure, and it's real enthusiastic. And so London's always great, and I love touring in the UK, and I love touring to like the smaller towns in the UK. We played Nottingham.
Oh yeah.
The last tour we went on, and it was just like, yeah, we did a tour of the Nottingham Castle, and you know, I just like awesome. And then Germany's good. Playing in Germany is really good. And France is. I'm trying to remember what France is like. I feel like France is really good too. Yeah, I think you know, it's not as like the shows outside of the UK aren't as. I guess it's really akin to the United States. Like if you play New York or LA or you know Chicago, it's great big crowds. If you play, you know, like Salt Lake City or the crowds are just they're smaller. You know,
sure.
we're not playing like stadiums, so
right.
They're smaller. And it's kind of like that in Europe. The bigger cities is a bigger crowd, and in the smaller cities it's a little more obscure, I think.
Sure.
You know, and but yeah, I love like playing in Spain and you know, I love playing all over Europe is awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think we've been anywhere in Europe where I've been like, ugh. I mean, I've definitely been like, God, I'm so tired. And I'm like, you know, what are we eating? But you know, there's never like a crowd that comes to our show that's like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Except maybe Germany. Like sometimes in Germany, there's like a running joke that in Germany they'll ask you questions that are sort of like backhanded, maybe unintentionally, but like it's always like, you know, I liked your hair better in the music video. Why don't you have your hair like that? Sorry, Germany. But yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good over there. It's really fun to drive or to ride in the car over there because it's stunning, you know. You're always driving through the Alps on tour in Europe, and it's stunning. And they're like, truck stops are insane. Yeah. They have like full spreads of like fish.
So just like a funny aside, yesterday afternoon I was in Waco, Texas with my girlfriend, and I go into the truck stop or the gas station by her house, and I'm just like standing there, you know, waiting in line, you know, to get I've got like a, you know, espresso, you know, can or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of standing there, you know, kind of spacing out, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, man, everything in this place is bad for you. Like, there's like a million kinds of like Lay's. I mean, like, I like junk food. I'm not gonna lie, of course, but like
Lorna Doone.
Yeah, like shortbread cookies. Yeah, fantastic. But just there's like the sheer volume of stuff in like an American gas station was just like, I was like, no wonder like Americans are so like, you know, big and, you know, bulky and whatnot. And and then I was like,
big and bulky.
Yeah, and I was like, I wonder what it's like to go into a gas station in Europe.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, there's junk food in all of them. Sure. You know what I mean? Sure. There's like, it's just their flavors are so far out, like roast chicken and biscuits or whatever, like, or you know, whatever. They just have like, especially the UK has some super far out crisp flavors, but yeah, kind of it doesn't look like a store full of toys the way the U.S. does. You know, if you go into like a travel stop and it's just like bright colors and like, you know, super crazy typography and like, you know, Mountain fucking Dew, you know.
Yeah.
It's a little, like in France, it's like they sell like baguettes and you can buy like baguettes and butter and just, you know, you can just roll with that, you know.
Yeah.
So, and they're really good, and you know, all the stories are true. It's really good. So, but it's not like there are a couple cities like Stockholm where you're like, God, everyone's a movie, like a fucking model. But I feel like that in New York too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I've heard that.
So it's like it is really different. It is really different, and I think in the U.S. I'm just so super used to it that it's comforting to like walk into an Exxon and see like yellow jackets and like male enhancement and like you know a great big Red Bull like cooler and shit, and it's like the U.S. you know, and but it tastes better in Europe, I think.
Yeah.
But it's like truck stop food is way better. They have something called Auto Grill in Italy, and it's like you walk in and you can get like gas there or whatever, but you also can get like a 5-course meal. Like there's like a buffet. You can get like spaghetti, you can get fish, you can get a meat, salad, whatever, and so it's like, are we at the Auto Grill? Can we stop at the next Auto Grill, please?
Wow.
Yeah. And it's so crazy to be driving down the highway or like the Autobahn or whatever and just see castles everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, they're everywhere. And it's like a you know, fairy tale.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you'll be there pretty soon.
Yeah, But, I mean, the U.S. is great, too. USA.
Yeah.
USA forever.
For sure. For sure. All right. Well, are you guys coming to Indianapolis or coming close?
I don't think we're coming to Indianapolis on this run. I have to look again. I wish we were, man. I love going to Indianapolis.
Yeah, me too.
I get to see my boyfriend's mom.
Mary Beth. Yep.
Indianapolis is popping off, too.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff going on here right now.
Yeah.
So, well, y'all have to come visit real soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely we will.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for talking to me, Eric. I'll talk to you soon.
And that was my talk with Laura Harris of X-Hex. You can keep up with Laura, Mary, and Betsy by following their Instagram at XHexBand, and that is EXHEXBAND. One quick editor's note from the show. I incorrectly said it was the drummer from the Bar-Kays who survived the plane crash which killed Otis Redding on December 8th, 1967. In fact, I should have said it was the trumpet player Ben Cawley who survived the plane crash and later died at the age of 67 in 2015. The best way to help the show is to tell a friend or share Rulers and Writers on social media. The best way to give us feedback is in the comments on Instagram, and you can follow us there at Rulers_AND_Writers. There you'll find a link to the show blog with some additional content. You may also consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes, which helps us move up in the ratings and become more visible to people who enjoy this type of content. Lastly, I wanted to make a quick apology for getting off schedule last week. The Birthday Nugget show was supposed to be a bonus episode in addition to a Country Nugget show. However, I was out on vacation with my family, and we had a few unforeseen circumstances arise while traveling. I simply ran out of time. Next week, we'll be back on track with a new Country Nugget show featuring some of the bluegrass work of the wonderful Keith Whitley. That's about all I got for right now. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you down the road.